Go ahead and use the fields that you want to answer a particular question. I'm going to go ahead and change my view. Instead of having the region in the columns, I'll move the region into the rows. And let's see what happens when we have two fields in one of these boxes. So now that I have two fields in the rows, I have two levels. So region is level 1 and my category is a level 2 item. Therefore, we are going to see that indicated on the pivot table. Here is the region, that's a level 1 item, and then we can see that our categories are level 2 as well. So they are kind of idented over. We can see that detail here, like if I switch them, I'll get the opposite. So here is beverages for the east, north, south, and west. Dried fruit for the east, north, south, and west. So that's the nature of the pivot table. It just automatically updates all the data for us, changes all the numbers based on what we are trying to answer. Now this is not the best example. You want to use higher level items at the top of each of those boxes so you can get, a better view of your data here as well. I'll go ahead and put the region back into the columns and I'm good to go. I'll remove the category here, I'll remove that, and I will go ahead and click on city. I'll move the city into the rows. Now I have a breakdown for our cities here as well. Let's go ahead and filter our pivot table. We can filter a few ways. We can filter, notice that we have a row and a column label filter. We also have a filter box. And finally, we have on the pivot table analyze tab, we have what's called a slicer. So if I click here, here is my slicer, and let's take a look at the built-in filters here. Here's our first filter, so we can filter by city. So because we have the city and the rows, if we click on the row label filter, we can filter by city. And this is nice because if I want to go ahead and filter, let's say I just want to filter by, I'll unselect these here. I'll just choose Chicago and Denver. If I press OK, notice how my table is only showing the data for Chicago and Denver. Well, I can also go ahead and filter by region. I'll reset this filter. What if I want to just filter by the East region? If I press OK, it only shows the states that make up the East region here and my data as well. We can use filters together just like a table to drill down to find what we are looking for. Let's take a look at another filter. Well, what if I want to go ahead and filter by product name? I'll drag the product name to the filters box here. Now that I have the product name here, we can see that we have a filter at the very top of our Excel document. And now I can go ahead and filter by product. I'll go for just the first three. If I press OK, we can see all the numbers have been updated. So for those particular items, the total is 5,916. So that is using the filter box here. We'll go ahead and clear that filter. We can see the filter is active right here, and we can also clear it from here. We'll go ahead and make sure that everything is selected. So those are just some different ways that we can filter our pivot table. Let's take a look at the third filter, which is a slicer. Let's go ahead and use the slicer to filter our data. I'll go ahead and click on Insert Slicer here. Now notice we have a slicer for each of our fields, one for city, product name, so forth and so on. Let's go ahead and insert a few. So we have a lot of fields. Again, we would want to keep it simple. Go ahead and insert a slicer for the state. I'll also insert one for the region and one for the salesperson. You go ahead and press OK. Here are my three slicers. I can resize them so I can see all the values. So I'll just resize them so I can see the bare minimum here. So our slicers, they come with a contextual tab so we can change the colors. We can also change the amount of columns that are being displayed. I'll just give them each a different color, different colors. So here we go. Now, if I wanted to filter by a region, if I just wanted to answer a question based on the east, if I click on the east button here, my slicer, it's only showing for the east. I'll go ahead and clear that. If I want to go for sales revenue based on sales rep, let's say Michael. So that's it. What about the state? I'll go for California. If you want to select multiple, you can hold down the control key and select multiple. So I'll go ahead and select Colorado, Florida, New York. There we can see that that works as well. So those are the slicers. My favorite way to filter data either on a table or a pivot table as well. Just remember to clear your slicers before you move on. Click on that clear filter icon in the top right of your slicer. That will clear the slicers for you and put your pivot table back to normal. It's time to create a visual in the form of a chart based on data that's being displayed on our pivot table. I'm gonna go ahead and delete a few of these slicers here. I'll just click on it and press the delete key. I just want to see my region slicer. I'll move this over here. I'll go ahead and click on pivot table analyze, and I want to go ahead and insert a pivot chart. Now what's really cool about the pivot chart is that it's dynamically linked to my pivot table. So whatever is being displayed on my pivot table is going to be dynamically being displayed on my pivot chart. Even if I were to remove some of these fields, move them around, they will be always displayed here as well. I'll click on my pivot chart, and here are the different types of charts. We'll stick to this clustered column chart here. I'll press OK. Now here's my pivot chart. I'll go ahead and close the fields over here so I can see my charts. I'm going to make it a little bigger. I'll give it the dark style here, making it a little easier to see, right? So here's my pivot table, here's my pivot chart, and here is my slicer. Now I can filter from the table, from the slicer, or the pivot chart. So for pivot chart, if I want to go ahead and filter, let's say by product name, I'll just choose a few here and press OK. Notice my pivot chart has updated, and also my pivot table has been updated as well. So any change you make to either of these objects, they will update. If I click on East Region button on my slicer, we can see that everything has been updated here as well. Go ahead and clear that filter from my slicer. Also go ahead and clear the filter from my pivot chart. Now I'll go ahead and turn back on the field list here, and I will make a few changes. So I do want the revenue, but instead of the city and the rows, I'll go ahead to remove the filter, remove the region, city as well. So right now we are getting the grand total. What about the grand total by what have we not used yet? Well, what about by, let's say, shipper name? I'll put the shipper name into the rows, and here's a basic pivot chart. We can see that Christine and Lee, most of the revenue went through Christina. If I want to go ahead and add the region here in the columns, let's see what this will look like. So it does make the chart a little harder to read, but we do have the details there as well. So we are good to go. I'll put the product, I'll put the category, the columns. So just like with the recommended chart, we can change the chart type to display another one. Maybe I want a line or a pie chart. I can go ahead and do that if I want to here as well. So that's how we insert a pivot chart to display our pivot table data. I'll go ahead and simplify this. I'll put this back to my clustered columns, make it 3D. I'll move the categories here, the shipper name, and I just want the state in here. There we go. Simple pivot chart. Just as a recap, we learned data analysis, some of the basics, converting list into tables for analysis. A lot of table tools are available to us to efficiently analyze our data. We're also able to summarize data with logical functions the f function, the average f, and the sum f's. If we are able to convert a list into a table and summarize the data with a pivot table, we are able to filter the table, move fields, display different values using the sum function or the count function as well. And then we are able to go ahead and display data with a pivot chart, so just giving a visual representation of our data as well. If you have made it this far, I'm very proud of you. You just have to keep going and keep learning and keep watching, and everything will be fine.